I'm pleased to welcome my guests for a discussion on the future of ride-sharing applications and partnerships. Joe Furnari is the CEO of Hyrecar, a rental platform that makes car rentals for Uber and Lyft drivers. And Andrew Macdonald is the Senior Vice President of Mobility and Partnerships at Uber, where he leads public transit partnerships and micro-mobility. Joe and Andrew, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the discussion.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. So, Andrew, just to get started with you, I'd really love to know what the state of ridership really looks like 1 year into the pandemic. We obviously know that vaccines are really getting into people's arms, and that's making a lot of riders feel more safe. What does Uber look like a year after the start of coronavirus?
Uber's getting moving again, just as cities get moving again. Obviously, when the pandemic hit, we had a pretty big blow to our mobility business. We do have a delivery business, which really took off during the pandemic, and that opportunity expanded. But people were staying home, rightly staying home. Travel stopped, commuting to offices stopped, city nightlife stopped, and when that happens, Uber slows down. But as vaccines get into arms, as you say, people are moving again. They're eager to go out. They're eager to travel, eager to go back to the office. And so our business is really picking up. And right now, we're just doing everything we can to help cities get moving again.
Right. And Joe, I know there's such an important link between Hyrecar and companies like Uber and Lyft because there's, a lending of cars to Uber and Lyft drivers. Talk about the mission of Hyrecar and really what's happened during the pandemic. I know that maybe ridership has declined at some points during the pandemic, but like Andrew said, delivery has been an important part of all of this.
Right. Our platform really enables gig drivers to choose the platform where they're going to be able to make the most money, right? So our demand is driven by gig economy driver economics. And so pre-pandemic, we were at like 95% rideshare. Post-pandemic, when we saw kind of the collapse of rideshare, we saw delivery companies really coming out. We saw companies like Instacart and DoorDash adding 300, 400,000 drivers very, very quickly. And so we, as a platform, were very nimble. We kind of expanded out that opportunity to delivery. And we saw kind of a plateau of our active daily rentals, and we saw a real acceleration into the end of the year. So now, the mix is about 50-50 as we see ride sharing start to come up and people are vaccinated and cities are starting to reopen. It's really going to be driven, that growth and that balance of delivery and ride share is really going to be driven by economics. And so we're seeing rideshare economics really, really high right now. Drivers on our platform are making in the mid 30s in terms of an hourly rate. So it's really, really solid. And so we're kind of now shifting the mix of driver inventory towards rideshare at this point.
Right. And, speaking of rideshare, Andrew, what I think is so cool about what Uber's doing is that the company's partnering with a lot of vaccine distribution locations and providing riders with free or discounted rides to get vaccines. I myself had to travel from here in Washington, D.C. to Southern Maryland. And at the time, I don't know if this partnership was available, but I'm sad I didn't get to take advantage of it. But talk about some of Uber's social responsibility goals that relate to, coronavirus vaccines, and talk about some other goals that might be in the pipeline.
Sure, happy to. And maybe we can get you for your second dose if you've still got to go and do that. We at Uber saw an opportunity to really help cities through the pandemic. And that started, right at the beginning of this thing. And March, April of last year, we made a commitment early in the pandemic to provide 10 million free trips and free deliveries to communities around the world. And this was everything from helping frontline workers get to hospitals or get to where they need to be, to food deliveries for retirement homes or other vulnerable communities in these types of initiatives. Then just a few months ago, we actually announced 10 million rides to get vaccines. This is a global commitment, and we've been working with governments around the world to roll those out and make sure that transportation isn't a barrier to getting vaccinated. Unfortunately, we know that it is, and especially for vulnerable communities, underrepresented communities, communities of color. These are often folks where transportation is a barrier, and so we want to play a role there. And then just yesterday, you would have seen an announcement out of the White House where we're going to work with the Biden administration to make sure that, again, transportation is not a barrier to get the vaccine for anyone in the United States, and we'll be providing free rides to and from 80,000 plus vaccination sites around the country between up to July 4th to help the country meet its vaccination goals. So we're really excited about that. We think we have an opportunity to help communities build back better, and this is just the beginning of our efforts on that front.
Right. And Andrew, just so our viewers know, when does that partnership officially begin with the White House where you can get that free ride to a vaccination center? Is it beginning immediately?
We announced it yesterday. We're hoping to get it out the door in the next couple of weeks. There's still some logistics we're working through, some of the in-app experience, but stay tuned, more information coming, but we're hoping to get it up in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. We'll be watching. And Joe, as cities reopen, as we're getting more shots in arms, what is your future for Hyrecar in a post-COVID world, or in a world where we're moving out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of green fields at this point. A lot of the competition pre-COVID has now been thinned out, and so we have a real opportunity to grow here. I mean, in our estimates, we see probably an opportunity of around 60,000 rental cars just in the United States. So it's a tremendous opportunity. To put that into context, we were at 3,000 in Q4 and a little over 3,500 in Q1. So there's a tremendous opportunity to really grow into this opportunity. I'm really excited because we have now programs and kind of modules that are helping finance drivers into cars. So we have an earn to own program right now that we're just getting launched with a bank on the East Coast that is enabling drivers to rent cars. If they stay in that car for 3 months, all of the rental income gets applied to the down payment of the vehicle, and now they own their car. So it's an earn to own program that I'm really excited about, that kind of really paves the pathway to upward mobility. So I'm excited about that and proud of that. We're going to be really leaning into that as I see demand for it.
Right. And switching gears, Andrew, we've talked to a lot of urban planners and, city officials, in cities across the country that want to tackle this issue of congestion in cities. And I guess as a layperson looking at this, I would assume that with ride sharing services, it might take some cars off of the road. But I've seen some studies that suggest that maybe ride sharing could contribute a little bit to some congestion on the roads. Where does Uber and ride sharing companies in general, where do they play a role in tackling this problem?
So this is something we obviously spend a lot of time thinking about, and we really do think we can be a part of the solution for cities. Uber, we view our mission as it relates to mobility much broader than just ride sharing. I think when you look at our platform today and what we offer in 40 cities around the world, we're connecting users directly with public transit directions and route planning in 10 cities around the world, and expanding where you can actually buy and pay for your ticket in the app for public transit. We've got micro mobility options, so things like bikes and scooters and other smaller form factors, non-car form factors, expanding around the world in dozens of cities. And we really view our goal to help use software, use technology to power cities in motion. And that's everything from rideshare to shared rides to high capacity vehicles to public transit systems to micromobility options and a whole bunch of stuff which is probably yet to be invented. So we think we're a part of the solution. We want to help take cars off the road. We want to help people move away from individual car ownership, because we don't think that's the that's the mobility future that is best for the world and best for cities. And so lots more to come from us on this, but we have a broader vision here.
Yeah, and on that point on car ownership, Joe, we've seen it was decreasing prior to the pandemic. How do you think the pandemic has impacted car ownership trends? Because I know that there was some anxiety towards the beginning and middle of the pandemic from some people about getting into an Uber or Lyft or taking public transportation. Do you think that there could be a trend towards more car ownership, or do you think this is going to continue to decline?
Right. Well, you're seeing it right now in the used car markets, right? They're $3,000-$4,000 above MMR right now with used cars because of chip shortages and then manufacturing. I think that there is going to be kind of in the short term, 2 to 3 years, a increase in car ownership just because people will be a little nervous to use public transportation in a post-COVID world. Eventually, we get to a place where the public options are economic and convenient enough to reduce car ownership permanently. And so we've kind of made that commitment along with Uber to go fully electric initially. But then, when we get down the road with autonomy, that's going to drastically reduce the amount of cars and car ownership, because it's going to be easy just to pull out an app and say, hey, I want an autonomous Uber car, I want an autonomous Ford car, I want an autonomous Toyota car. And so I see that being a ways out, but in the short term, I think there are things we can do to reduce the carbon footprint with EV.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Joe and Andrew, thank you so much for your time. This is obviously a very important conversation. I know that I'm personally very interested in it as someone who does not own a car and lives in a large city. But thank you so much for spreading the word about what Uber and Hyrecar are doing.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.